Thank you very much. Thanks very much. It's been a real privilege being here because I've been I don't deal with populism as such. I'm quite tangential to the issue, so I've been learning the last couple of days and certainly learnt the last half an hour. I do wish. I mean, it's the eloquence that when I start getting angry about this, I really start getting angry about it. I just spit and lose all control. And the eloquence of what was an angry appraisal of the situation that we've just heard, thank you very much. I've learned hugely from that. I'd like, in a certain sense, to pick up some of the themes that we've just heard about. I hesitate to begin with a slide from an ordo-liberal after this morning's arguments about the ordo-liberals. I've been translating ordo-liberals over the past few years, and again, to echo what we've just heard, what is going on now is a challenge to academic thought. Do we fence it? Do we categorize? Do we act in an intelligent way towards these new phenomena, or do we say, this is dangerous, let's resist this? Now, what is interesting about a lot of the ordo-liberal writing is they were still around. They were around and they were writing at the time of Adolf Hitler. Somehow they survived. Eucken was open in his rejection of the Führerprinzip within the universities. Bohm was writing during that time too, and they wrote a truth. They did write a truth. Quite how they got away with it. I'm not a liberal. I'm not an economic liberal. I may be a political liberal, but I'm not an economic liberal. But I can recognize exactly that moment. How do we react to what's going on? What do we do? And in their writing, I see people being extraordinarily honest. And to underline maybe something that was said this morning, ordo-liberals are not about authoritarianism. That's exactly what they're not about. The market, in the normative sense, we can talk. I mean, economists in the room are probably going, "Ooh, ordo-liberals, what are you talking about? Load of rubbish." But in the normative sense, the whole idea of the ordo-liberal construct is the imperative of powerlessness. We have the phenomenon of the powerful man. We have the phenomenon of the populist leader. This is not just a matter for politics, it's a matter for the economy too. So the basic presumption of the ordo-liberal approach to the economy was, how do we defend against populism? How do we defend against dictatorship? How do we defend against fascism? We ensure powerlessness within the market. This means that the market is not free. This means that the market is anything but free. We construct the market with the help of law to ensure that people have rights that constitute them as market players, but also obligations that prevent them from being the dominant power within the market. This is directed in two ways in the 1930s by the ordo-liberals. Firstly, towards the so-called free marketeer, towards towards Trump man, the man who thinks that the concept of the free market is that they can do anything they like within the market. The picture here is one of the major Brexiteers, the guy with the coffee cup. It's pointed that way towards the Trumps. No, you can't. The minute you take power within the market, the minute that you can fix the price, you can fix the demand, you can engage in pork barrel politics, you destroy the market because you've destroyed the powerlessness of the market that gives it its democratic character. This is the basic order. It's Hayekian as well. So that's one thing. You control the Trumps. On the other hand, and at the time, And even today, it will be spoken about in terms of socialism. Yes, socialism. This is, I think, again a slight correction of some points that were made this morning. The ordo-liberals who are still alive, and there really aren't very many who are still alive, maybe Messmaker, were very hugely anti-monetary union. Hugely anti-monetary union. They viewed it wholly as an example of socialism, as an example of trying to pretend that you can control the future, yes, that you can control the market, that you can give people welfare within the market. So the idea of, it's a bit difficult to get it across. I mean, I always find it quite funny. The idea of welfare maximisation to an ordo-liberal is socialism. Obviously not as we know socialism, but it's that the power that I can direct the market to a particular goal. You're lying if you try and do that, says Messmaker, says Hayek. That's a lie. And it's an exercise of power over what they feel to be only a legitimate construct if people are powerless within it. This is obviously, it's all obviously a response, an absolute response to a criminal, fascist regime driven by economic interests, also a pork barrel politics. So this is the idea and the challenge. Now I will move on because, as I say, I'm not an economic liberal. It's a challenge then to what do we do? What do we do? What do we do on the left? How do we react? Yeah, it's not to say, all of this is not to say, my rejection of populist politics, my fury with the current situation, is not to say that we do not have problems. We have very major problems within our current world. Why do we have Trump? Why do we have Davos man? Is it in part also our fault? And I think from a left perspective, we need also to think about citizenship and spatiality. I think this is one of our major problems in terms of natural social justice, a natural social justice that extends beyond the national unit, that extends, more importantly, beyond the collective. On a left side, our justice, so I am of the left, our justice is created in a collective unit, and we have difficulties finding universalizing that justice. Spatiality is Arendt's term, Hans Lindahl's term. We tend to create the closed polities in which we can supply natural justice. The post-national world, and this is where I will not just condemn technocracy or neoliberalism or ordoliberalism, because what is going on here? There are ways to universalize. There are ways to overcome the paradox of exclusion. The paradox of exclusion. I can give you social justice, but I can only give you social justice within a closed community. I need to universalize that. There are two classic ways of universalizing. The first is human rights, and the other is liberalism, economic liberalism. These are the two classic ways that have been pursued within our international organizations, within the European Union. So let's be honest about this. A lot of the problems that we create because we are seeking a good goal. We are seeking the universalization of values. I don't have a watch, so you're going to have to be quite quite strict with me. Let's look, I mean, we can see, I'm going to look specifically at the European Union, these two forms of universalizing strands. We have recognizing the human rights, recognizing the material other. I think we've definitely got a Habermasian, with juridification of politics, we've got a Habermasian moment within the European Court of Justice. We have some quite extraordinary jurisprudence which decouples the rights of enjoyment of citizenship from nationality law, which recognizes in Habermasian terms, the act of recognition, the material other. This jurisprudence generally relates to non-European citizens who are living in relationships with European citizens who are in positions of need. When the court says you can have social welfare because you need social welfare, the court is breaking the old paradigms of nationality. Citizens receive welfare on the basis of their reciprocal relations with other citizens. This is the way we have organised our justice claims. The Court of Justice, and this is the great thing about the post-national moment, uses human rights to say, no, I give the redistributive aid, I give that to the person who needs it. Yeah? The human rights moment. But we all know that the human rights moment is also limited. We have European asylum policies. We have now a European borders agency that makes up for the fact that the member states can no longer agree amongst themselves who they want to let in or not, and technocratizes the moment. So there is a limit to that form of universalism. The other universalism, though, there appears to be no limit to it. We know, we have heard, I know, I'm a lefty, that liberalism, economic liberalism, creates winners and losers. But at the same time, and this is a wonderful quote from Adrian Favell, it also gives you extraordinary opportunities to everyone to break the confines of community, to break the confines of the collective, to break the nation, yes? This is it. This is part of your European opportunity, and it's also a universal, and that it's no longer an entitlement; it's an opportunity. So it can be universalized, and it lives in the technocratic form, also from the notion of welfare maximization, that all welfare will trickle down. We can criticize it. We can criticize it. We can criticize it really strongly. We can criticize it really strongly because we also see in some, certainly here in Estonia, you will know the Laval and Viking jurisprudence. You will know the judgments of the courts that have held collective bargaining to be incompatible with European law, which have held strikes to be incompatible with European law because it presents people coming in from other countries to sell their labour possibly at a cheaper rate and to take advantage of the competitive labour advantage. We know it's got this negative, non-collective side to it. But we also know that it has its positive sides, spatial blindness. It is not going to treat you, this market, as a construct of someone's communitarian vision of what it is to be a German, or someone's, whatever, French vision of what it is to be a civic republican. It's not going to treat you like that. It's blind to that history. It's blind to European nationalisms. It's also blind, and I think this is the UK case, or it is a post-colonial approach in the sense that the welfare state in the United Kingdom very much supported historically by colonial abuses, by colonial preferences. Okay, so we know this. We also know the positives, and above all, the positive of it being a universal. Now, I'm going to come back Are you all following? Not sure where I'm going. Not sure where, how much time have I got to go anywhere? 10 minutes? No, I'm going too quickly then. Never mind. But let's come back then. Let's come back then to the challenge. Powerlessness. The private. This again, the vision of an ordo-liberal writing during World War II, writing against the populace. The challenge is, let's think about human nature from the private. From the private. This is the two sides, the liberal advantageous side, the market side, the personal freedom side. You have the opportunity side. You have no need. You have no need whatsoever of defining the community. There is no redistributive question here. You don't need to define the community. In the certain sense of, in spatiality terms, if you're in the private side of the conundrum, you're in the market, you don't have the borders problem. There are no borders because there's no need to define who you are. Yeah? There is the question of who am I simply doesn't arise. This is a market sphere in which you have opportunities to define yourself. For the left, the problem, however, is we also need a politics. We also need a politics of redistribution, which will make up for the very real damage that is solved if people do not succeed in this private sphere. Yes. Hence, as I say, hence again, but hence the conundrum. The minute we need the politics of redistribution, we have to define the collective. We are forced into that conundrum of let us define who we are. Now, this is obviously the social democratic conundrum. The social democratic conundrum that also led to a lot of nationalism. Hermann Heller is one of my absolute heroes, but he defines the community on the basis of cultural and social homogeneity and the joint creation of classes in Germany. So spatiality comes back with a vengeance, with its hard borders. Its hard borders are not just simply territorial hard borders, they are hard borders of the mind, of culture. Everyone still following? Right. Yeah? Now, we've seen what we did to try and escape that closure. We've seen we fell into the universalisms of the market. Now we need, somehow, to find redistribution outside the collective, outside the definition of the collective. I do not believe in left populism because I don't think it answers that question in any way, shape, or form. I don't think it's even posed. Maybe a Marxist analysis if you went global on a Marxist analysis, but I don't think left populism has posed that question, let alone answered it. Can we answer it? Can we answer it? The big problem is, of course, winners and losers and redistribution. Persuading people, on the one hand, to accept the fact that they are disadvantaged, and then persuading other people, on the other hand, that they should pay to the disadvantaged. It's why you tend to get, ordo-liberalism itself gets caught up within the social democratic constructions of Germany post-war, and very much a compromise between the two sort of ideas and very much a national solution. It's not easy. It's not easy. Hauke Brunkhorst, we heard some examples now about the pluralist forms of organisation that are happening on the global level. We heard some ideas yesterday around the watershed, yes, around the watershed. Hauke Brunkhorst, always great German political theorist, always when people come up with stuff like this, starts screaming basket weaving. Like the hippies of the 1960s. You're all out basket weaving. I do not think that all of this is basket weaving. I sense in part in the struggle against populism, new alliances between ethnic minorities, between disadvantaged classes, between gendered groups, the understanding, very much in that same sense, the understanding that there is something out there, the power that is being concentrated in very few hands, is something that persuades us better to understand each other and better to work with each other. And these groups, in a certain sense, the chain of equivalence that Chantal is talking about, these are not groups that would necessarily have recognized each other in the past. They are beginning to recognize each other. More importantly, from an economic point of view, and this is where I sit, I am an economic lawyer, you also see counter-market or counter-hegemonic market developments. I see an upswing in cooperatives. I see an upswing in non-profit organisation amongst young people, and I think a big change is coming. A lot of it's to do also with people not being able to house themselves, that you see new forms developing there. I see technological changes. I see with shared software, 3D printing, a possible return to artisan forms of the economy. So there are modes of new economic organisation with inbuilt redistribution within them. I also see, and here's where I'll stop, I also see something that has been surprising me. A lot of people will criticise the ordo-liberals. A lot of the right, the constitution of the economy, the economic rights, the constraints, competition law, the constraints that are placed around the economy. Obviously, from a left-wing perspective, you say, no, this is window dressing. This isn't anything particularly sensible. It is the hidden authoritarian liberalism, whatever. But at the same breath, you hear people talk about the new Green Deal. You hear about green standards, and I do wonder if you say, let's create a constitution for the global economy that is green, you are in a certain sense reproducing the ordo-liberal idea of constituting the boundaries to the market. Is this maybe also a way forward? And I'll stop there. Hope you enjoyed it.